Good afternoon and welcome to Kingdom Restoration here on Kingdom First TV. We're so glad you joined us today. Well, can you believe this is number 4? It's been a month where we've been discussing honor. I'm your co-host, Renee Scattergood. I'm glad you joined us today, and I'm going to turn it over to the host, Dr. Don.
Thank you. Guys, it's been an amazing month. Thank you for your time. I know you're all busy, as all of us are, and we're going to kind of conclude this, I believe, with some heavy revy, some things that I think really need to be discussed. And we're going to start today in 1 Timothy chapter 5, and we're going to look at verse 1. Paul was writing to one of his spiritual sons in the Lord. He was giving him wisdom and encouragement. And we want to talk first of all about honoring elders, honoring seasoned men and women, either by natural age or spiritual age. And in the King James, it says this: rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father. But here's the other side of the coin, guys. And the younger men, you still honor the younger people as your brother. You honor the seasoned people as fathers and mothers in the faith, but then you honor the young people from the aspect of being a brother and a sister. The word rebuke here says don't chastise an older person. It is not your responsibility to chastise an older person. Now, he said, don't rebuke an elder. The word elder in the Greek means a senior. It's where we get our word forefathers from, like the forefathers of our nation. But I thought this was a simple one, guys, but really profound. It means elder simply means someone advanced in life. They've lived it longer than others. And he said, don't rebuke those individuals. Pastor Travis, we're going to start with you. What's your thoughts on that today, sir?
Well, being an elder, I have experienced something that I'm sure that all of you have, and that is that someone comes along that has the newest, greatest, newest revelation. And never mind that you've been doing what you've been doing for 40 years. They somehow in the last 2 months have learned how stupid you are, and they're going to fix you. And I usually just stop them at that point and say, listen, it's been tried. You can't fix me. It's just not going to work. It's such a sad thing. It's a terrible thing for people that really think that you can learn how something that's so organic as dealing with people and loving people and knowing the area that you're in, or knowing the call that's upon your life, because everybody's different. You know, the way that Apostle Don ministers, the way that each of you minister is different than the way that I minister. It doesn't make yours wrong and mine right.
Right.
Because our giftings are different, our callings are different, our personalities are different. And when you start thinking of yourself as someone who is qualified to correct someone, especially someone that's older than you, someone that's been doing what they've been doing for a long, long time, it's dangerous in my book. I mean, just go swim across a crocodile pit. But when you start messing with somebody that's been doing something for God for a long time, it's a dangerous thing, because God ain't going to just let that go.
Yeah. Let me give you this quote, and then Michael will go to you. We're talking about not rebuking an elder, but also treating the younger generation as your brother or sister in the Lord. Listen to this, guys. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles.
Yes.
Amen.
I'm going to say that again. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor the title or the gifting or the function, because they understand the importance of that. Michael, what's your thoughts on this subject?
Well, when I listened to Pastor Travis talk about how people that are younger try to come and make him come up to snuff or come up to speed and try to fix him, I can recall my father having an expression that he used to say to me, and he would say, "Son, you're not even wet behind the ears yet." I had no understanding of what that meant when he said it to me, but it was something that I heard regularly. And as I began to mature a little bit, all of a sudden I got to the place that I understood what he was trying to get across to me. Because as I got older, then I had people that would come to me and try to tell me things. And I'm like, you haven't even lived yet. You haven't even been around the block once, never mind 3 times. Where do you get off being an authority? And if there's ever a time we need those in our life that are more seasoned than we are standing literally on the shoulders of our forefathers.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm grateful that my mom and dad are still with me.
Yes.
My dad is now 86 years old and my mom is 84. And they're both still actively involved in ministry. And they're both still teaching and preaching. They have lived a life full of experience. And I get to draw on their experience and have their heritage and years of faithfulness and legacy handed to me. And then I can take where they've been, stand on their shoulders, and go even further.
Yeah.
And there comes a point, I believe, in ministry that every true spiritual parent has this particular attitude and motto where they say, my ceiling is your floor.
Wow.
And where I end is where you begin. And I can recall many times through the years that my mom and dad would tell me and tell others publicly that I was going to far surpass them and exceed them. And then there came a point in my life when they actually said it publicly, not that I would, but that I had. That's very humbling to hear your heroes say that Michael has exceeded us. He has far surpassed us, and he's gone places that we could never go. But it came because I always honored them as those that would speak into my life. They've become my greatest role models in life and in ministry. Thank God I learned how to listen to them even when I wasn't wet behind the ears yet. And now I look for those that I'm doing what they did. And I'm following their example. And I am now pouring into others just like they poured into me. And it is my greatest joy to pour into others the wisdom, the principles, the character, impartation of life that they have poured in. Now I get to do that. I get to be the senior one. And life that's the way it's supposed to be, where fathers pour into sons who raise up sons that become fathers that will pour into sons who raise up fathers that will pour into sons. And that's the way the kingdom's supposed to work.
You know, one of my favorite Leo-isms that you've quoted many times that your dad used to tell you, his daddy would say, Michael, you just need some seasoning. You just need to go through some stuff and experience some stuff, which we all do and have. And, you know, Michael, mine and your life is so simple. Our dads were like our superheroes. They taught us the word. We saw them in ministry. We're byproducts of them in ministry. And Renee knows this. 15 years ago, when my mom gave me a word and said, you need to begin to write some books and leave a legacy. I said, Mom, Dad wrote 17 books during the Word of Faith movement. I don't need to write a book. Dad wrote 17. She said something to me that forever changed me. She goes, but son, some of the stuff the Lord's showing you, he didn't show your dad. Mm-hmm. And that was a challenge. But the one that messed me up the most, and I'm sure, Michael, you felt the same way when your parents just said to you what they did. My dad was up in his years. He was beginning to struggle somewhat with dementia. And we were in Florida. And one afternoon, we were in the kitchen. And my dad wasn't an emotional man. You know, Leo, our generation of daddies didn't show emotion, not really. Mm-hmm. But tears were in his eyes, and they were beginning to run down his face. And he was just staring at me. And I said, I thought something was wrong. And I said, Dad, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And listen to what he said. He said, the student has become the teacher. And that messed me up and forever changed me. Leo, what's your thoughts on this subject?
Well, y'all threw out some crazy good stuff. Just to, can I skip? No, I'm kidding. just to revisit something. My dad ended in life not being that man. He ended being a man that was gloriously born again, called into missionary work, planted churches in the Philippines. 40,000 people were saved before he passed away. He couldn't even talk about that ministry without his chin quivering, and that big, tough, he wasn't big, that tough exterior man was broke completely down into tears trying to tell people about what God was doing there, you know. And that's the side that I wanted people to remember, since I said the other stuff earlier. He was a mighty man of God in his last 15 years or so. God used him in a mighty way to do amazing things. As far as the verse, I'm reading out of the Passion. It says, don't be harsh or verbally abusive to an older man. And that word man translates to elder. It's better to appeal to him as a father. I think that's an important thing you don't really understand when you're young, because you're still wet behind the ears. And because of that, you don't have the experience to find the value in the knowledge you've learned through time and experience. But when you have learned through time and experience to have that value, you all of a sudden understand what it really means to be an elder. And you can look and see what it means to transform the way you think about other elders. Of course, we know verse 19, same chapter, says to receive not an accusation against an elder, lest it be established by two or three. So we have to be slower to react. It's not a lack of reacting. It's matter of fact, it's not reacting at all. It's a response that has to be brought about, but it needs to be done in the right way. Amen. That's
really good. Let me read you two more quotes about honor, then Renee, I'm going to go to you. These two are powerful. Listen to these, y'all. It is in the character of very few men to honor without envy a friend who has prospered. Woo! I'm going to read that again. Yeah. It is in the character of very few men to honor without envy a friend who has prospered. Y'all, we've been around the block a few times. Well, how come they got the promotion? How come they got a new car? How come they got a raise? I've been in this church longer than they have. I've served God longer. We've heard all that. Yep. But this is the one that is profound and prophetic. Listen to this, and then come to you, Renee. No man was ever honored for what he received. Honor has been the reward of what he gave.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm going to read it again. No man was ever honored for what he received. Honor has been the reward of what he gave. Renee, thoughts?
So I've tried to never rebuke my brother, Don, because he's so much older than me. Really, it's because
he said that with such love.
Not just him, anybody. Unless God really tells me to go and talk to them, and then he's going to have to nudge me, because I don't want to ever be viewed as unteachable, or that I can't be taught something, or that I think there's nothing left for me to learn. And I feel like if you're rebuking someone who's older than you and they have more life experience than you and more wisdom than you, you're just making yourself look dumb, because they have more life. They can. How can I rebuke them? They've experienced things I haven't, and I never want to be viewed as that. You can't teach me something. Can someone teach me to swim?
Well, and you guys all know this because we've counseled people in our churches and ministries. I use my life stories and examples for them to learn from and through, where they don't have to go through and repeat what I had to go through. Right. The sad part of it, the pastoring side, that's get difficult at times. when they hear you, but they don't receive it. And then a month later, you watch them going through the very thing you could have helped them avoid if they would have just listened.
Amen.
Yes.
With this last program here, the last about 10 minutes or so that we have, we're going to go to a strong one here, guys. And it's tied to honor. I do believe that. And it's Ecclesiastes chapter 5. I'm going to read verses 4 to you. And I'm just going to read verse 4, but and 5 and 6. So listen to this. When you make a vow, when thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Now, that's some strong King James lingo right there.
It is too.
Pay that which you vowed. Verse 5, better is it that you shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. Verse 6, suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. This is strong. Neither say thou before the angel, oh, it was an error. I really didn't mean that. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the work of your hands? Now that's about a series of teaching in 3 verses. But the concept, guys, is how important God looks at a vow. Whether it's your tithe, your offering, your time, your commitment, you know, you schedule a time with your pastor to go counsel and you don't honor it, you're 20 minutes late, you don't show up, you don't call. God is not silent on this subject of vows and honoring them, and you could go so many directions. So this last program today, guys, with the last 10 or 11 minutes we have left, Pastor Travis, going to start with you. What's your thoughts on that, sir?
Just recently in a discipleship group that we do on Wednesday night, we talked about this subject in light of it's so important for people to make a commitment and give their life to Christ. It's so important for us to pray the prayer of salvation with people at the altar. That's so very important. But it's also important, and forgive me for the train, but we're close to the tracks here. It's so very important to express to people that that's not the end of it.
Yeah.
That when they've made a commitment to Christ, it's for the rest of their life. And it's gonna involve, you know, forgiveness of others. It's going to involve them studying their Bible, them praying, them having relationship with God. And I know that sounds like a lot of things to do, and I know we're faith people, but you know, salvation, when we come to the altar, that's not the end. That's just the beginning.
Come on. Yep.
And the vow that a person makes there has to be walked out, because the Bible also tells us in the parable about the seed and the sower. Apostle Don wrote a great book on that the enemy is quick to try to steal the word away. He wants to immediately get out what something's been sown in that person's heart. And if a person doesn't know that they've got to continue with that, once they've made that vow, continue with that and walk that out, the enemy is going to be right there to try to steal it away.
That's so good. And you know, guys, isn't it amazing that even in the covenant of marriage, we exchange vows?
Yeah.
You know, years ago, I heard Creflo Dollar make a statement, and it was controversial, especially for the younger generation. And he said this: he was not allowing his kids to date, per se, as the way the world dates. And then this is what he explained. He said the world and this younger generation is continually practicing the spirit of divorce. They find a boyfriend and a girlfriend. They date. And if they don't like something they do, they don't like something they say, they don't like one of their friends, they divorce them and they go find someone else. And by the time they make vows to their covenant relationship, they've already practiced that divorce spirit to the point with if they don't like their spouse or something better comes along, it's easy to divorce because they've already seeded into that. That's just another concept of vows. And it's amazing. You guys have done it. I've done a lot of weddings. I've had people say, well, I want this part of the vow taken out. And it's one of the most important parts of the vow. They don't want to say that to their spouse. They don't want to say that publicly. And I'm thinking, here we are about to establish a covenant, and you already got a strike against you. I mean, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. Michael, how do you feel about this vow thing and the honor that goes with it?
Well, you said something as you were introducing it that put a thought in my head that I wasn't even going to go to. But it's one of the things that I've had to deal with as a spiritual father. You talked about setting appointments and honoring commitments and honoring. It's one thing to honor God. It's another thing to honor fathering leaders. It's another thing to honor local pastors. And many people will make an appointment with a local pastor for counseling and then just blow it off. And the pastor has set aside the time out of their busy schedule, away from their family, and they've set aside the time, and then the person just blows it off and doesn't keep it. As a spiritual father, I've had spiritual children set appointments with me, and I've got the time booked on my calendar, and then they don't even call, or at the time that we're supposed to have the meeting, get a text and say, I'm sorry, I can't make it. Something came up. That's really a lack of honor. And it's hard to deal with that. And if we can do that with leaders that speak into our life, is not that a root of a greater problem with God?
Yeah.
And it's better. It's better to not make the vow. It's better to not make the commitment. It's better to not make the appointment than to make it and not keep it. And it's hard sometimes when you're the one that is setting aside the time, and then you have to walk in love and not get cross with people. And love believes the best of every person. Let's not make our leaders, our pastors, our spiritual fathers have to believe the best of us. Let's not do the devil's job for him and make them walk in love, when if we could just keep our appointments, we wouldn't have to worry about it.
Good word. I'm going to come to you next, Leo. As pastor, I pastored, and Travis, this will call him. I'm still a pastor. I still pastor too, just like you do. Just a different dimension, but we're buddies. You can call me friend. I don't care. One of the things that drives me crazy is, you guys know, our church is in our home, like the Book of Acts. We get up, we discipline ourselves. My wife and I, Renee does. I know what time I need to have this house ready. I know what time I need to have my message ready. I know what time we have to have the coffee pot set out and the water set out and the things that we're going to do. We discipline ourselves to get up, to get all that done, and to be on time. The church folk just got to show up.
That's right.
And I've had to Renee, I've had to challenge them. We have a private page. I've had to do it from the pulpit. I said, look, honor by being on time. We've prepared to do this. Sometimes we're sitting there till 10, 10:15, 10:20, waiting on people to show up. And I challenge the younger ones, stop playing video games till 2 a.m. Don't go out and hang out till midnight, and then you're dragging your tail in on Sunday because you can't be at church on time. I said, discipline yourselves to allow a 2-hour window once a week for us to corporately come together. You're not going to show up day after day on Monday mornings late to work. You wouldn't have a job.
That's right.
So what this concept, we've got a lot of subjects here on this program. Leo, what's your thoughts?
So there's a powerlifting term from back in my powerlifting days that we used. And it was what motivated us individually. And it has a lot to do with this in some ways. But we would say, I'm going to do today, meaning I'm going to lift this certain amount of weight. I'm going to do today what others won't do, so that I can do tomorrow what others can't do.
Woo! Man.
And so I think when you learn to be a person that keeps vows, even though, keep your word on timing and so on, we're modeling that. So it starts with us as leaders, because leadership is exampleship. So when you have leaders showing up late to church, come on, and you got people that are, taking up the tithe and offering at that certain moment in the time, and they're not there yet, and so somebody has to spring up and run back and help get the bags out and do this. There's just a constant amount of dishonor in vows because we've grown so accustomed to not having to keep our word. And I'm just going to say it, but I really think that our pandemic that we had even pushed that further into the recesses of our mind, in the forefront of our mind, is because we just learned that all we had to do is send in a text that we didn't feel good, that we have a fever, and we don't have to go do whatever responsibility. And so it just furthers that whole thing, and it just fosters that I can make an excuse and you don't have a choice but to believe it unless you call me a liar. And this is my happy face, like I said, but I've become a little more prone to tell somebody, you're just lying to me. These are what you use to get out of the responsibility of your word and commitment. And yet here I am, just Apostle Fram said it, I've scheduled it. I'm here. I'm in the office. And everybody's got something, but for me, it would be literally I scheduled to get off work at a certain time, leave my guys, be in the truck, be home, get a shower, get clean clothes on, eat a bite of something as I walk out the door, run in here, sit down, prepare my thoughts a little bit more, kind of calm down, put on the other hat. And then you get a text 10 minutes later. Oh, I'm not going to make it. I just spent the day, but let's say at least 2 or 3 hours getting myself to a place where I could do that. Right. We have to really start correcting that in people. And I really think as a matter of fact, don't set an appointment if you're not going to make it.
Amen.
Don't set it to feel like you're going to make me feel better that you at least set one. No, if you don't make it, you didn't make me feel better.
Yeah. I'm going to say this real quick, and then I'm going to let Renee close out today's program. During the pandemic, I like how your term, churches quit having services.
Yeah.
We went into a place called the Big Biscuit here. It's a phenomenal breakfast and lunch. And it was during the pandemic. We were back in church. We was having church again in our home. And this couple, I heard them say this. Oh, we just stayed home and watched another church online today because of the pandemic, but they were in a public restaurant to eat at 12 o'clock. Mm-hmm. That blows my mind, y'all. We've been talking for a month, Renee, about honor. You got about 30 seconds. Close us out, sissy.
I'm going to take 45 seconds. It's been about a month ago that Don told me we're going to talk about where is honor. So I went down a different route with this. I have a Reddit server and I have a Discord server. If you don't know if those are, sorry. And I went and opened a forum thread on both places, said, where is honor? And most of these people are young that are replying. Every single one of the comments, and those threads are still going to this day, from young kids are telling us no one keeps their word anymore. Not my mom, not my dad, not my teachers, not my friends. No one keeps their word anymore. So where is honor? It's in your mouth. It's in your heart, because what comes out of your mouth comes out of your heart.
Yep.
If you're missing honor in your life, you need to look at the vows you're making and not keeping. You're dishonoring everybody that you impact when you do that. And all I can say, if you want to look where honor is, look inside yourself.
Amen.
And see where you're dishonoring or making vows and not keeping them. Don't take it lightly. Take it very serious. When you say something to someone, you should do everything in your power to make sure that you follow through with that. Don't dishonor them.
Great word. God bless you guys. Hey, all of you guys, I love you. All of my heart, you know that. You're my dear, dear friends. Thank you for taking time this month to be with us. Folks, we trust something we've said or done has blessed, challenged, and encouraged you. Until next Friday, right here on Kingdom Restoration, Kingdom First TV. We love you. Thank you guys for being with us. God bless y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching